Hello everyone, it's Cheryl Millett here, live at 5, all things healthy. And the idea for today was, how does this work? And we could ask that question of many things. So we're just going to see, or just give people a few seconds, 10 seconds or 30 seconds, something like that, to come on. Yeah, it'd be great to see. Say hello if you come on. Just say a quick hello. Then I'll know people are on. I'm still, I probably have to Google just how this new Facebook Live works, and there's probably some sort of a switch or something that comes into play. Some sort of a setup, some sort of a thing, and then maybe because I'm on my desktop it works a little differently. But how does this work? Now, when I'm saying it about health, and I have said a few things based on viruses or colds or how the body works to a certain degree, but how does this work? I want to talk about the test a little bit here. I want to talk about how the body works, and I want to make clear that there's really very little science out there that shows you how things work. So I'm just going to hold up my hand. This hand works in all the wonderful ways. Yes, sure, there's joints and we can say all of that, but in its I tell you, probably in how it works and communicates and what it does and where the immune system is and this and that and how it heals, and there's probably not every piece known. Now, much about this event is unknown, and that's the way it talked to in the very beginning. Remember, unknown. To me, that's already a place to start, which is unknown. So when anybody says anything, blah, 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 well, it's unknown. So where does that come from? How do you come up with that? So early in the game, it was models, 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 and it is so important to know, how does this work? How does this model work? And it's the model itself, but also the information that go in. But science doesn't know how the body works. We can learn how the car works because we put it together. It's a bunch of machinery, it's a bunch of equipment. We can know how the plumbing works and the electrical works due to we've put it together. But there's no science on this planet that's put together the human body. There's no science that has put together the human body. We are born a miracle. The body's a miracle. They continuously come up with, in science or doctors, this has never come up before. We're not quite sure how this works. And the other side to this is understanding control and how science, be it science, I've said this before, it's only observing. Not just me, but other scientists, Richard Feynman and stuff like that. Scientists made up, and I've said this before, everything is made up. So if we think about science, scientists, people who observe how things work. So how does this work? And that's the questions they ask. And we have to ask ourselves, and we have to understand enough. See, there is a disconnect between the most people and knowing how things work. And some of us will go on and we'll research and we'll see what they'll learn, and we'll learn that we don't know. That's kind of if you go down the path of science, genetics even, you'll soon learn what they don't know, which is a lot. I laugh still because I can imagine this geneticist, and he was, I think, part of the Genome Project, but when I was researching it for my book, they were talking about, well, we're going to be able to find and cure cancer, we're going to be able to, and the fellow said to the interviewer, do you think I'd still be bald if we have figured things out? And that's the key here, people, is distractions have us in our life not even understanding how things work. even to the simplicity where science is limited, just to even understand simply how limited science is. Very simple. The other thing is understanding awareness versus distractions. And why don't we understand so much? Why aren't we our own doctors in some way? Why aren't we intuitively? Why do we have to run to the doctor? Why do we believe everything we hear and that? And it's good to have faith. It's good to have faith to see things work out. But when I hear, oh, this is the cutting edge science, this is the experts in this is the people who know this, and they're the top in their field, I kind of take that with a grain of salt, because I understand, and I know from my research and the people I've spoken to, limits. So in our world, we have, on one hand, or one end of the spectrum, I like to talk about spectrums, one to the other, and the shades in between. So on one end of the spectrum, we have distractions. Buy more, have a nice place, let's have the best body, let's watch TV, great, the facts and all of those things. Here's the next bestseller, and you've got all this fiction stuff, and that's distractions. Distractions come in so many different colors. They're very colorful, and we have plenty of distractions. What are we going to eat? All those things can be extreme distractions. On the other side, there's this awareness, this being able to discern actually information, understanding the difference between knowing and believing, gut feelings, all the things just kind of playing in awareness. And then there's can be distractions in awareness where there's so much information and we can be distracted by watching, going down rabbit holes. I would suggest we simplify. That would be my key thing here. There's so much that's coming out, so there's a level of awareness, and I'll play with different things, watch one kind of area a little bit just to kind of understand where they're going, what they say, and then I may not even talk about it to people, because I know it's a distraction. I'd rather come back to center. I'd rather come back to being grounded. I'd rather come back to simplicity, neutral, grounded, keep it very simple. So with all of that said, keeping it, hey sis, keeping it simple is yes, you've got your life, you're living life. It's got to be fun. But you're responsible for your health. Absolutely. Let's kind of, how does this work? Let's keep going into how does this work. So we understand about science, we understand about distractions and awareness, and we've made a lot of things complicated, and I've said before, a lot of stuff is made up. Why? Well, we have corporations, we have businesses trying hard to please, to please the shareholders, hard to pay their loans off at the bank. It's almost like practitioners, their hands are tied. So we have all of that in the puzzle, yes, but I do want to keep it simple here. Now, I watched a video the other day, and it kind of did sum up some of the things I've been saying quite nicely. So I'm going to post it down below. It's Miss Amanda, and I even then want to kind of simplify it even further. Now, the first thing I'm going to say that we can all feel and sense and take to heart and put it in our knapsack, embedded in our brain, in our thoughts, there forever and ever. And that is, the body is a miracle. Simple as that. The body is a miracle. Science observes they don't know everything. If they knew everything, would we have as much cancer? Would we have as much diabetes? Would we have as much obesity? For all the things we got to come in there. Yes, mind, body, how we feel, all of that. But we wouldn't. So science is limited. The body is a miracle. I want to explain this once again because I have spoken to this in respect to a cold. when they say, when it's been said, put your coat on, you're going to catch a cold, they don't mean you're going to catch a cold because the cold is in the air. Well, it is cold in the air, but it's not because somebody else is beside you and they're going to give you a cold. It's because you bring your body down in energy. It takes a lot of energy for the body to heat up, and if there is a span of time, then yes, we can run ourselves down. Let's just think of it, running ourselves down, catch a cold, running ourselves down. If we understand we're all energy, then we only have so much energy. But the idea is, what happens in a cold, to catch a cold, is the body has to, some bodies, not all bodies. So some people may not be in the position to catch a cold. We've heard these people, I never catch a cold, I never get sick, don't get the flu. So if the body's in the position, run down, stressed, then these things appear. Now, what tends to happen, I think is the biggest confusion here, is to actually point the finger at something as bad. So good and bad, good and bad. Once upon a time, bacteria, they didn't even know it existed. And until they had the microscope and they could see that there was bacteria, and the particular bacteria on the dead body, because of what has to happen, is going to be different than in a live body. And there was that crossover. The live body need not have that bacteria. It's not that time to die. But that would cause blood infections when things were happening back when. So let's kind of get it into simple. So what happens is, we've labeled things good and bad, good and bad. We see it, it's present, and we've labeled things good or bad. Bacteria is one. Didn't know we had bacteria, didn't have anything to blame, could see that there was these little things, blamed them even though they didn't understand them, and then it keeps going, well, there's good and bad bacteria. I'd like to say there's not good or bad bacteria. There's bacteria, simple as that. And if the body's run down, or if the environment changes, the bacteria needs to change. Virus is the same thing. So if your body's run down, what appears, what can happen is, in order to protect the body, in order to get out the toxicity, let's say, the viruses appear. The viruses are there. The viruses come about. And this is really the nature of things, to understand our body is the miracle. Things will morph and roll as you will get symptoms. Things will show up as they need to, like stem cells, right? So the turning over of new cells, needing to grow, needing to heal, needing to mend, stem cells. So they find stem cells. My understanding through my research is the cells can morph and change to stem cells. So of course they can find them in certain parts of the body that exist in small amounts, and they're trying to take them from there and put them there. And so you've got this whole stem cell science that's going on there. But the body is a miracle. And when we have supported that from an environment, so not junk in, and we understand the stress, and we understand good nutrition, good dietary habits, how to eat. And I keep talking to many people about this. We eat too much, we eat too much, we eat too much. That's why I started the no snack movement. It was primarily because my daughter got yelled at from her teacher. But the idea is, we don't need that much food. End of story. You could eat twice a day. You might even get away with very little on some days. Some more you may find you need, but people eat out of why? Because we've been told, and it's wrong. I don't like to say wrong very often, but I'm going to say it here. It's offside. You eat more food, you get all this. Where's the energy go? You don't use up the energy. The body doesn't need it. It's going to store as fat. It's going to store, people. And if you can't store anymore, you're going to have a buildup, or maybe more sugar in the blood. You know, the body can only take so much, so you have this metabolic syndrome, you have all of this kind of happening. But it depletes the energy at the same time. right? So in order for the body to manage the food coming in, it takes energy. So you're using up your vital energy anytime you're eating. Some people say, well, I can't go to sleep. Well, you ate an hour before you go to bed. Well, your body is, the furnace, everything's kind of in active mode here in order to use it up or to store it, to digest it. So everything is kind of active, and you don't want to be so active that way. But the idea is understanding the body's a miracle. We are one big cell regeneration machine at one level, and that's a whole other conversation. But we're energy. So energy, need energy, you consume energy, and it's a balancing act. And we need certain key nutrients, not as much as you think. I put that in my book, not as much as you think. And the body's a miracle. So when talking to a biochemist who was awesome, his name is Brian. He's since passed. He went to the hospital and something happened. Don't know all the details. Didn't want to ask the family. But I asked him questions. He was a brilliant guy. And I had, in my research, discovered that it may be possible to convert magnesium to calcium. Now, we think of the elemental table as structured, rigid. Yes, there's different, different numbers, different whatever molecules in there, but they're supposed to be unique in themselves and not convert, right? They're not supposed to be. So when we think of calcium, magnesium as two essential minerals, and we think of consuming calcium for calcium needs, for how science says we need them and where they are, and by the way, calcification is supposed to be a problem with us of probably it's the wrong calcium, inorganic calcium, but hardening, calcification in joints, calcification. So I asked Brian, I said, he only likes to comment when he's done the research himself, which is what we're talking about, the knowing and beliefs. But I asked him, I said, I read this research, Brian, around converting magnesium to calcium. This one doctor, and it was quite an elaborate paper and description and stuff. And I said to him, I know you haven't done it yourself, and, well, unless you have, tell me, but no, he hadn't. I said, did you read about that? And he goes, yes, I did. And I said, do you think that there's a potential that our bodies can convert magnesium to calcium? And his answer was yes. Yes. And much of what I've discovered is it's not what we're being taught. It's not what we're believing. It's not being made of importance, but to simplify it, our body's a miracle, and they really don't know how it works. So, the control aspect, which I mentioned earlier, is key here, because this is where, how can I say it? This is where we've tend to gone, whether practicing medical drugs, whatever. I'm not going to get into any fancy names or this or that. It is to control the body and how it operates. But it can only at a simple level. Control the inflammation, block. Control blood pressure being at block. Blockers, beta blockers, blocking. That's really what it's doing. So if I wanted to get from A to B, and there's a block, I can't get from A to B. The inflammation doesn't happen. But it doesn't mean the root cause hasn't been dealt with. Absolutely. So think of the way we've tended to think about our body is to control it, to think of it in parts and pieces rather than as a whole. When we think of this event and how does this work, I have to jump now, so let's just keep that. So viruses are nature. Viruses are part of our body. Viruses aren't going anywhere. If we like to control viruses, we're going down the wrong path, in my opinion. Absolutely in the wrong path. If we're trying to use nanotechnology and getting things in our cells, we're going down the wrong path. So much of this, again, is trying to control. Sure, it can seem like things are improving. Listen, if you're low energy and I give you a teaspoon of sugar, you're going to say it's a cure. I have high energy. I'm just going to eat sugar. But that's not the issue. That's not what's going on in the body. Like caffeine, artificially stimulating the nerves to feel like you're awake. That's not it. That's probably the one thing I would throw in the garbage can right now is coffee. All your coffee, throw it in the garbage can. Now, do yourself a favor. Anyway, not to go down that. So the idea is, keep that in mind. Viruses are here to stay. Viruses are natural. Viruses happen into our body for a reason, for a purpose. They help us. Bacteria, the same thing. Will it tune us into we're not in balance? Will it tune us in we have too much toxicity buildup? Will it tune us in? Absolutely, if we're listening to our body. So that's important. So keep this over here. Now we have this event. How does this work? Well, somebody brilliantly, as I've said before, used viruses to make people fearful of something that's in their body. It's very simple. It's brilliant. It's brilliant. I mean, if anybody wants you to get vaccines, anybody wants you to take medicines, whoa, viruses, they can kill you. Viruses are the bad guy. These little things you can't see. And they can see them, and they have either misunderstood them because that's just where their headspace is at, or they know and they're not telling us, right? They know more than they know. But let's just stick with how does this work. So this event works where they have the word virus, which seems to get a bad rap, right? Virus. So we have this virus, and we know they're natural, they know they're in our body, and they're there for a reason and a purpose, and they're not the root cause of the scenario. So with the key thing here is this test. I want to go over the testing. It's a piece of the puzzle. The pieces of the puzzle earlier on to kind of trigger for me to go, something's not right here. One is them saying too much and doing too much because it was unknown. That was number one. Number two was saying there could be asymptomatic people that carry, of course, we all carry viruses. It's part of our who we are. It's part of this. So asymptomatic. That was a huge red flag for me. Thinking deadly. And I knew more about virus. I wasn't saying too much initially because of just timing. But so you have this. The PCR test, people, do your research. The PCR test is not for determining infectious diseases. It was wrongly used with HIV virus, which doesn't cause AIDS. And you're going to have to do your research on this. And so Mullins, who created this PCR test, was only to create it to copy pieces. Copy. So if you have a piece of RNA or a piece of DNA, it copied a lot of them so the researchers could actually use it for their research. Instead of having one copy, they have 50 copies or 1,000 copies, and it's easy to see it. It's easier to do research. Simple. That's the person who invented it was clear on this is not for infectious disease. That you're using it wrong with HIV. And I guess somewhere, somehow they thought, well, if they used it for that, we're going to use it for this. Anyway, can't say I understand the conversation on that. So here we have a PCR test, people, that isn't for infectious diseases. And also, the video that I'm going to give you with Amanda, she has documentation in there where the particular, so if you remember DNA, there's like four code letters, right? A, G, C, T. And they have a pattern. And so you're going to see this code. And this very same code that they use for PCR test is in our body, and plenty of it. It's like part of every cell or part of every DNA. It's in our DNA. So if you wanted to, with the PCR test, if you used it in a way, you could show everybody positive. You could determine everybody's positive, which is why there's so many false positives. All you have to do is cycle it more, and you've got a positive, because it's looking at amounts of this particular sequence that supposedly is part of viruses, but it's really part of us, because our viruses are created in us. They're created there. So you have this test where they'll say, CDC, if you want names, it's 49%, well, last I looked at CDC was 49% false positives. And that must be a model, people. It must be a guesstimate or an estimate, because that's like taking everybody's tested, the number of hundreds of thousands, and retesting them or putting them through some other thing and figuring out that it was false positives. So that's got to be a model. But I'm happy to use it. 50% false positives. And if you wanted a country to show that they've handled the virus, that it's finished, then all you have to do is cycle it less of the duplicated pattern of this particular DNA letters, right? And so they'd all be negative, because the amount wouldn't be there. So that's as simple as that. How does this work is knowing how this PCR test works. So therefore, people, what's this all about? What is this all about? We have to ask ourselves the question, why would they sound the alarm for something that was not a multitude? As yes, something was happening in China, but I've understood through my early research that the number of people that die from respiratory diseases in China due to their pollution and some other factors recently came into there, like 5G and stuff, but let's just keep it to an average year is 2 million to 40 million. Now, they didn't have anywhere those numbers of those people dying. So what was it about? Is it political? Well, it's something, people, because you wouldn't have people making up these things for no reason, and they wouldn't have done a lockdown for healthy people, and they wouldn't be making us wear masks. They just, in my logic and my research, it doesn't make sense. But it's best at least that you're aware and you understand a certain number of things. Go do your research. I'll plug in a couple of links below. But research it, the PCR test and how it should be used from the creator standpoint, the person who created it, and that's really all you need to do, is to keep it really simple today, is understand how does our body is a miracle, viruses are a part of it, that's just the nature of things, understand nature. And using viruses against us, using bacteria, germs, all these things against us in our thinking, because we can't see them, right? We can't, it's almost like the mouse to the elephant. For some reason, the mouse gets the elephant all up in a heart. It's just this little mouse. But the mouse can get up the nose, something like that. And then the elephant can die. But that, the fear thing around some of these things have been embedded in us to, if you can't see it, it's unknown, and we've been made to be fear of things which we shouldn't be. And so many people are waking up to the fact that drugs are not the answer. They're absolutely not the answer. Do your research. If you're on any drugs whatsoever, do your research on the side effects. That's your homework. I have homework, but just kind of do that. But understand, drugs are not the solution. Do they help with pain? Have they helped with pain? Absolutely. Does that help you see? Yes. But understand that that isn't getting at the root cause, and there's a ton of side effects. Tons of side effects, including death. But we tend to go, well, I don't know what else to do. This is the steps, the simple steps that we need to do. Quite often people are doing too much. Quite often we're looking outside ourselves for answers, and they don't even have the answers. It's really simple, really, really simple. And when I hear from people who are people that come to see me in their 60s, 70s, 80s even, and they say to their doctor, I'm not on any meds, they're blown away They're blown away when a person over the age of 50, let's say, maybe even in their 40s, that they're not anemic. And let's give it to you preventatively. And it's the whole prevention thing. Think of it as corporations. Think of it as making money. Think of it as a business. How can we get more people on drugs? Lower the cholesterol range? Say that this is preventative? All of those things. You've got to understand business, business, business. And capitalism has a good side and a dark side. A light side and a dark side. And for the most part, there's a lot of dark side to it. And I'm not going to get into all that kettle of fish, but the idea is it exists. And yeah, lots of distractions there. Tons of distractions. Making money, stock markets, whatever it is. It's the next best thing. It's the magic bullet. The magic bullet. It doesn't exist. So there you go. But you can feel good. If you're missing something, you can feel good. You can feel good just not eating for a day. Right? Not eating per day, but we push and we try to control, and yet in all of that, holistic to allopathic, whatever you want to call it, there's still a lot of pushing. I would say to push means we're trying to control, and to push means we may not know what's best for the individual or the uniqueness of that situation to go on. So one of the things I learned over the years, one of the most important things is, as a practitioner, got to get to know the situation, got to get to know the person, the individual, and from many fronts. Such an important step in, I know, for mentoring people, and if I get that done this year, the idea is we have to get to know what's going on. Got to get to know the situation. Got to get to. We do it. We do it in relationships. We do it in meetings. We do it in so many other ways. But we have to apply that also. It's important to apply it to our health as well. So I'm going to leave it there for today. It's approximately 30 minutes, which is great. But this is so important to understand. The body is a miracle, and we certainly are limited in what information and knowledge from, let's say, even the science and research. And we have big business here. We absolutely have big business involved in our health. Simple as that. And when you get business and people wanting to make money, appease shareholders from that simplicity, yeah, it's probably like it's it's a little puzzle in itself, making money in corporations. So yeah, me too. It makes no sense. Yeah, it makes no sense that things happen. Questioning is very important, and being aware, but at times discerning what it is, it takes more research. It takes understanding different pieces of the puzzle. But I want to try to keep it simple. The body is a miracle. We don't have to control. We don't have to push. We don't have to pull. When we do that, we get ourselves into a knot, and it's kind of stress in itself. And in reading my book, the details, I mean, the number of pages that detail the root causes of disease, it's simpler than you think. Simpler than you think, but you have to see the picture of how it works. Very, very easy to do. And we'll just keep getting healthier and getting healthier and getting healthier and getting healthier. And that's probably my wish for everybody. Safer, healthier, more at peace, more calm, and then we can focus on what's more important, which is having fun and being creative and playing and making an impact, making a difference for nature, interacting with nature. Relationships will be there to experience all of that with you. Yeah, I mean, it's just kind of like that, people. So all good people. Anyway, I'm going to thank everybody for coming on today. And if you like this video, like it. And if you think that there is some information in here that may be of value to other people where they're at, then share it with them. I only share this information in a sense that if it helps people to understand, if they can understand and it can help them. But certainly, a number of people maybe are not ready yet. Maybe not ready, maybe they are. I don't know. It's one of those things. We can't go all over the map and make it complicated. I certainly don't want to talk a lot of jargon and things like that. But at the end of the day, if we can simplify it, believe, just believe. Go to bed every night and just believe your body is a miracle. It will tell you things, and when it tells you things, that's a good thing. We don't need to get all up in arms. I've got this, I've got that. Stress does a lot of things to the body, so we can relax. That's the only reason why I shared the book and the stages of disease, is so that people would be able to be more comfortable with how things work at the level we need to know. That's the simplicity. It's not going to give you the science. It's going to give you science, yes, but it's not the science to control. It's not that science, right? It's not the magic bullet science. That's not that at all. Anyway, thanks for coming on. Enjoy the rest of your evening. I'll be on tomorrow live at 5 because that's the Mondays. That's the usual. Any questions, comments, feedback? Yeah, just post it, because it's not only for me, it's for other people. And I love questions. I think getting in the practice of questions is very good, whether they have a white coat on, a blue coat on, a red coat on, whatever color their coat. Take care, everyone. Bye for now. I don't know if there's any questions here right now. Usually not. But if there are any questions, you can post them. I'll just take 2 seconds here. But if no question, that's fine. Sometimes we just have to process things, which is all good. Anyway, I'm going to say goodbye. I'm going to say bye for now, and we'll see you again, and welcome everything. Good people, take care. Bye for now.